Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, I'm going to be continuing my Fractured guide. This time, we're looking at boards. Now, I have all 8 boards in Spirit Island listed out here. We have our S tier, our A tier, and finally our B tier. So, looking at the top S tier, it should not surprise you. We once again have board E, the best board in the entire game. And for Fractured, it is, I believe, Fractured's best board. Now, what makes this board so good? Well, a couple of things. First, it is very easy to pocket. If you get rid of this single town, you pocket 3 lands. The Dahan placement is pretty insane. You have 2 Dahan nicely over here on E3, which will help you against the Prussia games because you start with a town there. In addition, you have a single Dahan over here on E1, and you can easily get another Dahan into your E1 as well, and that is going to be important into both England, into France, stuff like that. Into France, the town distribution looks like this, so you never have a single land type that is completely empty. This gets more into France specifics of why that's beneficial, but that is a benefit that you also have on board E. What else? I mean, beast placement is nice. The blighted land is off to the side. I mean, really, this is just an excellent board here. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't really think of a single complaint for this board. With Fracture Days, so Fracture Days, the starting presence aren't in the town land, which can be pretty beneficial because if this land comes up, a lot of times we like to let this land blight. So not having your sacred site there is helpful. Now, of course, it's not the end of the world. You can always choose your G3 to move your presence out of that land. But really, Fracture just really wants just excellent Dahan positioning, very easy for us to maneuver the Dahan around, such that we can get a favorable counterattacks. Now, one of the few negatives about this board is your starting presence are both in the same land type. So if Sands does come up, you're going to be kind of sad. I mean, at least you'll have to maneuver your presence in such a way because you'll probably let one of these lands go. It's not the end of the world, but just one of the few weaknesses of this board. Okay, so the next very powerful board with Fractured Days is board C. Once again, amazing Dahan positioning. If you look at your C1, C6, and C5, you're can very nicely pair up all of those Dahan. Um, Very similar to board E with your land 3. Your land C3 has 2 Dahan, so you can easily handle that land into Prussia. In addition, the town distribution is going to be 1 into all of the different land types. So once again, this is into France, so that's going to be very favorable there as well. In addition, you have 2 Dahan in the blighted land here, which is nice for some of the events like Tend to the Earth. There are some events that will automatically heal the blight if it's in a land with Dahan. So the fact that, or maybe it's Tend to the Land, can't remember the exact name, but there's two of them in the deck that will heal this blight for you that you get because you're playing on board C. Um, just another very solid board with board E. This is, of course, whenever I make these videos, it's all because you pick a board up here. That doesn't mean you're going to instantly win, and that doesn't mean if you pick a board down here, you're just going to immediately lose. There's going to be a lot of game to be played. It's just that the boards up here tend to yield more favorable results. Games tend to be easier. More things tend. It's just there are more lines of play with boards up here, and I feel like this is always the video that I make in these series that I'm most unsure about, and it's the same thing with Fracture Days. It's like I've played a lot of Fracture Days over the last couple of weeks and just over years as well. And I'm still not entirely sure on the exact board positioning, but what I have found is games on board E and C just are very smooth. Just it's very rare that I lose games on these boards with Fracture Days, or I feel like I'm in trouble. Okay, looking at board A, these are your boards that are, or looking at the boards in A tier, these are the boards that are just a little bit weaker. We have board A, B, and F. So looking at board A, some of the big weaknesses here. First, your land 1. This is going to be a city land into England there'll be a town here into France. Not having Dahan here is pretty important as if that land does come up into those adversaries, it's going to be difficult for us to clear it. In addition, board A has a lone Dahan in that disease land. which means this Dahan is susceptible to getting killed by disease events. That's one of the big weaknesses to board A. Into HME, this is one of the boards that has a 75% chance of a turn 1 Ravage, which is suboptimal. The rest of the boards have 50%, and then board D has 100%. In addition, your Mountains Explorer is pretty weak in general, just because you only have a single Dahan, and you also have this lone straggler over here. If I can actually draw on the board, I don't know why I can't here, but can't draw on this board. But if you look here on board C, you have a lone straggler on I meant to say board A. On A6, you have this lone Dahan here. But if you look at board E and on board C, you can easily pair up all of the Dahan, so you never really have that issue. One of the benefits of board A is if you can get rid of that town on A8, you can create a little bit of a pocket here on your A8 and your A7. Another negative of this board is your starting sacred site is in a land with that town, which is unfortunate. Looking at board B, similar problems to board A. Once again, you have another straggler here on A1, or not A1, B1. You have the lone straggler on A6. You have one on B1 here. In addition, the both your presence start in the same land type, very similar to board E. And as a result, if that wetlands comes up, it's going to just be very unfavorable for you because you have a starting sacred site in the town land, and also that Dahan is in just that awkward land. Now you do have the benefits, so both boards B and board A, you have 2 Dahan in that land 3, so you can better control land 3, which tends to be an edge case land, especially into Prussia. So that is pretty nice there. Also with board B, if you can get rid of this town here, you can nicely pocket your lands B8 as well as B7. Trying to think if there's anything else on this board. I guess France, you're kind of sad because Sands could be a very dangerous explorer because your starting towns are on B1 and B8. Let me see on A1. I believe the towns are like this. So at least France's distribution is pretty nice for board A. I think if there's anything else on board B. It really hurts when that wetlands comes up turn 1. I'll just say that. I've played enough games with it where just when that wetlands comes, it's just very unfortunate. So board F, this is my favorite board in the entire game, but I think it's also an A tier board for Fractured Days. One of the big benefits of board F is the Dahan placement. So it's very nice to be able to pair up these Dahan over here. You can easily get 4 Dahan into your land F1, which is very nice into England, because there's going to be a city there, and having 4 Dahan means you can easily trade with that land. Now, one of the big negatives to board F is your wetlands is actually very dangerous. This is your edge case land, and if this land comes up multiple times, you can have issues because it'll have to blight and then cascade and all of that, but luckily you do have a skip here. What else? What's the other negative here? Yeah, your sacred site starts in a land with a town, which can be pretty unfortunate because this is a land that you would like to let go. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, Russia. This is a pretty bad Russia matchup, or a Russia board, because both beasts tend to be in the same land. I shouldn't say bad. It's just the games tend to be a little bit different compared to some of the other boards, where your beast distribution will be on different land types, so you can better control the escalations. But with board F, they're in the same land, so you have to escalate into that land. Then again, if you have stasis, you could stasis the land, and then you don't have to worry about the escalation. So that is kind of a little neat trick. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here. Really, it's just that lone straggler here on F3. Like, I think if this Dahan was like pushed over, or if the Dahan was here, I think this board would be a lot better. I actually think board F is better than both boards A and B, but because of that Russia nonsense and the straggler here, it's just not good enough to reach into S tier. Okay, finally we have B tier. So these are the weakest fractured boards. We have board H, G, and D. I've really tried to like these boards with fractured. I've played a lot of games. These games just feel tougher. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my own personal bias against these boards, but things just don't go right on these boards. So Both board H, G, there's just crazy amount of adjacencies, so it's difficult to create pockets. One of the benefits on board H is you can easily access a ton of Dahan into your H1 here from either H6 or your H8, which is great into England, into France. But you do have that lone straggler here on H3, so very similar to board F, you have that weakness here. Town distribution looks like this, I believe. So your mountains into France is going to be pretty difficult. I already talked about Prussia is going to be a problem because of the extra town here. Yeah, that you have a town starting in your sacred sites. What else? Is there anything else with this board? I don't know. Just the adjacencies, especially with Blur, because Blur is mainly how you're going to be moving Dahan, getting those counterattacks. It's really awkward. It's a very awkward Dahan movement board. Okay, looking at board G, very similar to board H. There's just so many adjacencies. It's just tough to get Dahan where you want them to go. Like you might be able to get Dahan over here on G3, but it's like, okay, how do I get Dahan to another part of the board? It's just very difficult. You still have the issue with your sacred site and the in the townland into Russia. Both beasts line up into jungles, which is kind of awkward as well. What else? I believe the town distribution looks like this, I believe. So Sands is going to be rough into France. You do have 2 Dahan here, which is nice into England, but it's very difficult to get a third Dahan in there. I guess board E has like a similar. Oh, actually, no, it's way better with board E, right? Because if Sands comes up, you can blur Dahan from E5 into E1. But with board G, you can't actually blur Dahan into your board into G1. You only have a single Dahan in board G. It is nice you don't have any stragglers like H3 or B1 or F3. You don't have any stragglers on board G, but just I don't know, just this board feels bad every time I play it. So, all right, looking at the last board, we have board D. I'm pretty sure. I don't think this is the worst fractured board, but it feels bad. You have the Scotland edge case, right? If wetlands comes up, you have towns here and here, which can be pretty difficult. It's also the only board where you get a turn 1 Ravage against any HME Explorer. You also have a Dahan in the Disease Land, which makes you susceptible to this Dahan dying. You have no Dahan into your D3, which is your Prussia edge case. You are nice against France because you have towns on both D1 and D8, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about the empty land coming up early. What else? You do have 2 Dahan in D1, and you can easily get 4 Dahan to D1, which is pretty good, especially into England. And that is actually one of the biggest benefits to board D, is it's a very good Dahan board, just because all of the Dahan can link up. You really just have to watch out for the edge case of D3. And honestly, D3, D4, D6, these lands can all be very problematic. Maybe this board is good enough to get into the second tier. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, so this is my rough draft for this. Really, it's going to be all about your blur card. Remember, board E and C, amazing as always. And then A, B, and F, kind of A tier. And then finally G, H, and D at the very bottom. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.